This week, as we come to the midpoint in our studies of the book of Joshua, we turn to Joshua chapter 6, verses 1 through 27, which detail the events involved in the conquest of the city of Jericho. You will remember that up until this point, the Israelites have crossed over the Jordan River. They have encamped in Gilgal. They have prepared themselves by recircumcising all the male Israelites. And now they are ready to begin the conquest of the first of many cities that will fall in the ensuing years of battle. The city that we are going to begin with, the city of Jericho, which, by the way, we know to be a real city. We know its location. It is regarded as perhaps one of the oldest cities in the world. We know from our account that this city was the first city to fall to the attack of the Israelite tribes. What is interesting is that the battle that we are about to discuss is a different kind of battle than those that have been fought by the tribes of Israel prior to now. Up until now, the Jewish people have met various adversaries, not in cities, but usually on the battlefield, on their approach, on their way to the land of Canaan. The discussion of the city of Jericho this week is the first time that the people are faced with doing battle against a strong, fortified city, a city which is surrounded by a seemingly impregnable wall. This is the first time the Jewish people have had to confront a battle situation that involves them not merely in defeating a foe, but in actually conquering a well-established city. In fact, the true challenge that faces the tribes in the description that we read this week, the true challenge that they face is not conquering the people. We already know that the people of the land of Canaan are living in dread and fear of the Israelite tribes. Conquering the people is the relatively easy part of the battle. The real challenge they face is how are they supposed to breach the strong walls of the city of Jericho so that they can actually do battle and conquer the inhabitants of the city. I should point out at this point that an interesting fact is that the Israelites meet no other resistance as they attack Jericho. You might have thought that if the tribes of the different peoples of Canaan had been smart, if they had been wise, they would have come together and faced Israel as one united force. They would not have waited for the Israelite tribes to pick them off one after the other. But you will remember from our previous discussions that the people of Canaan were living in fear of the Jewish people. They were living in fear of Joshua and the tribes. And therefore, when Joshua lays siege to the city of Jericho, there are no allies from outside the city who will come to its defense. So this is a unique battle in that it is a battle fought against one city and its inhabitants. And finally, one more observation before I present you with the general question that I would like you to consider for this week's session. I told you this past week that when we crossed the Jordan River, when the Jewish people crossed over the Jordan River into the land of Canaan, it seemed to mark the end of a period of miracles. During their 40 years of wandering in the wilderness, the Jewish people had been fed manna miraculously. They had been provided with water throughout their journeys by God in a miraculous way. They had been led through the wilderness by a pillar of cloud and a pillar of fire. God had shown his manifest protection and guidance of Israel throughout the previous 40 years. But with the crossing of the Red Sea, the last of the great miracles seems to be over. And therefore, this battle which Israel is about to fight seems to be a battle in which they are engaged with their enemy without any support at all from outside, any divine help. And that sets up the only question that I want you to consider this week. As you read the story in chapter 6, I want you to address yourself to the following question. Although we will see in the story no miraculous interventions, God does seem to be present in some way in the events leading up to the conquest of the city. What I want you to consider as you read the story of Jericho is how is God's presence indicated behind the scenes, as it were, in the account of the city's fall. That will be the substance of our discussion this coming Tuesday evening. I look forward to seeing you then. Shabbat Shalom.